I have a talk called Getting Started with Liquid Assets. I'm Randy from Blockstream, and you could, next slide. Yeah, that's my email. I do things with assets on Liquid, and we're trying to support the developer community on Liquid at Blockstream. So if you, ever need any support, feel free to, email, and I'll try and make sure everything goes smoothly. So yeah, next slide. This is going to be a workshop, and I did have some prerequisites. One of them was Docker, and then there's Python. If you have Python 3, Python request module. You don't necessarily have to actually do it on your own computer, but I was going to show you how you could issue and register these assets. And then, next slide. So the context for this talk is, Liquid. So I was going to answer a couple questions, which are, what is Liquid? What are liquid assets? And what is the Blockstream asset registry? So what is Liquid? Liquid is a side chain to Bitcoin. It's actually built, from Bitcoin. It has a lot of the same source code and has, tiny variations in it. So some of the big things are federated consensus. There's a 1-minute block time. There are confidential transactions, which means I can send money to someone else without the whole blockchain knowing how much I sent. This is done through cryptographic proofs. And then you also have native assets on Liquid, which is a huge distinguishing factor from the Bitcoin blockchain. The code base of the Liquid blockchain is built off Bitcoin, as I said, and it adds on to some existing features. So what are liquid assets in particular? Among the features that Liquid does bring on top of the Bitcoin blockchain are these assets, which have first-class support in Liquid, which means that it's actually a new field in the transaction model. So in terms of application, liquid assets, they open the door for creating arbitrary financial instruments, such as utility tokens and stable coins and anything pretty much that you'd want to make on a blockchain. So what is the Blockstream asset registry? A lot of other blockchains, they have a concept of a registry, which is some place where you could add information about your assets or token. So Blockstream, we have an asset registry that you can use, that you can send information to register official information about your asset and or token. So what can you store on the asset registry? In particular, you could store your asset name, your asset ticker, and the asset precision, which is how many decimal places you'd want to denominate your token with. So how do you issue and register an asset on Liquid? And there's 2 ways. One way is to do it through RPC calls to the Elements node. And then the second way is a new tool that we're working on at Blockstream to allow you to do it through the web. And it's going to have tight Blockstream Green integration for people who use the Blockstream Green wallet. So first I wanted to go over issuing an asset using Element CLI. Like I said, you don't have to do anything. I could just show you on my own computer, and I was going to go over the code that is used to issue an asset. So for those of you who are interested in doing it, you can go to that link. I have a short URL down there. It's a repo. It pretty much has some code, so you could issue and register an asset easily with the registry. So you clone it, and then you can navigate to the directory. I use something called Docker to make things very easy, and if you have it, it shouldn't take too long. So you run this Element CLI container, and like I said, I'll do this actual live for you. And pretty much I have this Docker container connecting to my Elements node on the testnet. So that's in there, and I have credentials that are in this slideshow that you could use if you want to. So now that we've, after you build your image, you can go ahead and run it. But we do need a couple things more than what I already have in the repo to get things working. So part of that are environment variables and some settings in the elements.conf. So if you did want to connect to my Elements testnet node, I'm not going to have it up for very long. It's pretty much for this conference, but I have it at liquidtestnet at scriptpubkey.com, and the RPC user is demo, and password is BTC++. And so you have to define these 2 environment variables for the script in my repository to work. The 2 environment variables are your asset name and your asset ticker, and I'm going to go over the code to explain what context that's used in. So all of the logic is encompassed in generate contract hash.py, which will generate a contract hash, which is this commitment that you put on the blockchain. And you also have to set, you make a contract, which is this JSON, and you have to post that to Blockstream's asset registry, which is a service we have. So yeah, I'll go on and do the demo, and then I'll go back to what this is.
Can we ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Can you tell us how does the, I'm not that familiar with Liquid, how does
Yeah.
it interact with the Bitcoin blockchain?
So for Bitcoin, you pretty much have to peg in your Bitcoin at a certain address, and there's a federation that allows you to peg out when you're done. But you lock it in. If you've been familiar with how some other chains work, when you're maybe even like wrapping things, right? Wrapping Bitcoin and going to Ethereum, there's typically some peg-in sort of process. So yeah, you peg in your Bitcoin to the Liquid blockchain, and then when you want to take it out, you could also do that. But the idea is some people only want to peg in. They want to do some operations on Liquid that's not supported on Bitcoin. Like maybe you want your transactions to be confidential, or maybe you want to have Liquid native assets like Tether that you want to pass around on the Liquid sidechain. That's another use case that you could use.
And you have your own contracting language?
So it is script, but it does have additional opcodes. So right now you can make more powerful covenants on Liquid than you can with Bitcoin. So in some ways, scripts on Liquid could act as a testbed to what you could do on Bitcoin. So if you've seen some other talks, you might have heard of Simplicity, which is an alternative to script that will be implemented on Liquid first. But part of the motivation is to see if it can eventually go into Bitcoin. So Liquid in some ways acts as a testbed.
And settlement is not necessarily, it can be in Bitcoin, but it could be in something else.
What do you mean by settlement?
Settlement of the contracts, I guess.
Sorry.
You said there are other tokens you can put on this.
Oh yeah, but you'd have to issue your own asset on Liquid. So as an issuer, if I'm Tether, I can go and issue a whole bunch of Tether tokens by issuing this asset, and then I can distribute it to people. And yeah, you could make other schemes that you'd want to do, just like any other blockchain. If you wanted to find a way to have people peg in Bitcoin and you automatically issue assets to some Liquid address, that's also possible. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah, this asset registry is also like part of the federation. Like if you're a federated node, you're already an asset registrar.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
You mentioned this asset registry, right?
Yeah.
Where you like register your
Correct.
name or whatever.
Yeah.
Being a federated node makes you a registrar?
No, the asset registry, yeah, it's separate. It's completely owned by Blockstream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are the tokens that one might issue, are they also denominated in sats?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you issue, you kind of have to be careful and know that one might accidentally be 100 million, depending on how you're issuing things.
So
you can make smaller, denomination. I could say I only want like 2 units of something, in which case you have to put the 0.000, and then if you are using a wallet that connects to the Blockstream registry, we have this field called precision, which you could say make that 0.0001, whatever, represent 1, for my token. Does that make sense?
I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could peg in with 100 sats and then issue 1 million tokens.
Yeah, theoretically, if you wanted to, if you had your own company and you wanted to issue your own asset, yeah, you could issue however many assets you want to whatever addresses and denote it in whatever a denomination with the precision in the registry. Yeah. Uh-huh.
What's your guys' outlook on the regulatory framework for how these various assets that are managed on Liquid?
Yeah, so as far as I know, the previous projects have been with individuals and companies that are involved in the government in their area. So if they want to issue things, they typically follow legal compliance. As far as individuals issuing just assets on Liquid, the assumption is that you follow whatever laws are in your jurisdiction, but we don't deny people pretty much access to pushing information to the registry. So you could make your own token and give metadata, regardless of who you are.
There's no KYC involved in the registry?
No, in the registry, no. You just post the information of your contract, which is this JSON, and that's it. As long as you have an asset that's issued with that contract hash that you will eventually send to the registry, that you will have a registered token. So no KYC involved in terms of registering your asset.
But it costs you a little bit of LBTC, right?
Yeah. So when you issue an asset, you do have to pay transaction fees, and it is a tiny bit of LBTC. But this tool that I will show later on, it's still kind of being developed. So this is like a pre-alpha. But this tool, we're intending it, at least starting out, to cover the transaction fee when you want to issue your asset. All good? I can go to the demo? All right. So the demo is pretty simple, but I just wanted to explain how some of the code works. Here, I'll make it a little bit bigger. Or move this. So I made this demo very easy to use. All you have to define is an asset name, environment variable, and an asset ticker. And if you have my Docker image set up, then this program would actually call out to it. And all that's in this Docker is element CLI. So it was supposed to make it easier to run and install. So what this does is it gets a new address. So you have an address. I get the public key of your address by taking the address info and extracting the public key from that. So when you register an asset with the registry, you can give it a public key such that if you have the private key to that public key, you could later delete your entry in the registry. You can't really modify any entries in the registry because all the information that you enter into the registry has to be hashed, and that hash has to be included in your issuance transaction, as you'll see later on down here. So with this public key, I'm going to add that into the contract. Asset name and asset ticker were defined using the environment variables here. And I use this domain. So typically, you'd have to have a domain that you have access to, and to prove that you own this domain with Blockstream, we ask that you put a file in your /.well-known and this pretty much URL that we give you. And you have to put a certain file in there so that we could verify it with our asset registry service. This is something I made. It auto-approves any assets that want to link to it. This is what I use for testing, but so I could do the demo. So you have a public key that we got from up here and this is all from my testnet node. And you have an asset name, the precision, ticker, and version. These are all things stated in your contract. And after you have this contract, what you have to do is you have to get the JSON for this contract. You have to make sure that it is sorted. That's kind of the standard that we're working off of. And I just made sure not to have any spaces in it. So that just gets the JSON. From there, you kind of have to do something weird. Again, I have this on my repo, and we have documentation for registering an asset on the Blockstream website documentation, but it's a little bit outdated, and we will revamp it soon so that people can go and make the arbitrary assets. So basically, this contract hash part is a little bit confusing and convoluted, but you have to hash your contract JSON, and then you have to take the bytes. This is very important that you take the bytes. And you take the bytes of that hashed contract, and you reverse them, and then you get the hex representation of that. I either don't know or don't remember why you have to do this process. Like I said, it is convoluted, but you do have to do this to register with the Blockstream Asset Registry. After you have this contract hash that's reversed, you have to use it with your element CLI command when you issue an asset. Right now, I have this hard-coded to give 10 of whatever asset you want. So 0 just represents something called a reissuance token. You can give out tokens to people, individuals or institutions that want to have the rights to issue more of your asset. That is another feature that we have. Right now I'm setting it to 0, which means I just want to have 10 of these assets, which are denoted in certain denominations. After I do that, I get the result from Elements CLI, which talks to the Elements daemon. The Elements daemon is pretty much the Elements node. And I get the asset ID, and I will print out the link in the Explorer to that asset. And then pretty much you have to wait 2 minutes, for it's roughly enough time for it to get picked up and confirmed, right? Because you have 1 minute block confirmation time on Liquid. Then to register, this is all we have to do. There's a URL. This is for testnet. Again, you could find some of these URLs on the documentation for Blockstream, but it will be better soon, much better soon. And once you have that URL, all you have to do is you have to send it this JSON. So in this JSON, you have your asset ID, and you have your contract. This contract takes in the unstringified contract, and I stringify all of it, to try and not mix up types when it parses, when the Rust, so it's written in Rust, this asset registry. When it parses this whole JSON, you have to make sure that the contract, you gave it as an actual, JSON object and not a stringified version of it. So then finally, you just have to post that payload, and then you'll get your response. And the response should give, empty 200s. Right now, it's giving kind of a weird response. Hopefully, it doesn't give it at the moment, but it might give an error response, even though it actually does register. And we can tell if it actually successfully registered or not, because if you go on Explorer or the Blockstream Explorer, you will see the name and ticker of your asset and the precision and so forth. So to run that, I did have, let's see, I had a terminal open here. See, this is the error response I was getting. Like I said, it's a little bit wonky right now. But here, I could run this all again, but I will change what I want my asset name to be. Export asset name. And let me just call this BTC++. And then,
Not spaces, right? Because you remove the spaces, right?
huh?
You remove the spaces in your code, so the asset name cannot have spaces here.
Right, yeah, exactly. In this code example, yes, it limits it.
Oh, but it's only in this example.
Yeah, there's some rules for your name and your ticker, but I can't remember all of them now, but they are on the website. So I'll make a quick asset ticker. I'll call it BTC PP. And let's run it and see if everything works okay. So this should be, it sent some commands to my remote Elements testnet node, and it gave me a link to my asset that's waiting for confirmation. And if I take this, I should be able to view my asset, and here it is. It's unconfirmed, but we could, see some information about it. Again, it's denominated in Satoshis, so you get a big number. If I wanted a smaller number, I'd put 0.00 something. But as we said, it is denominated in these units. And let's see if I go back. So still waiting for confirmation. But after it's done, I should be able to refresh that page and see my asset information. So the asset name and the asset ticker, precision. And if you put different values of precision, the display amount will show different as well. So it's a little bit, 2 minutes. Anyone have any questions up to this point? No? Yeah.
Is the ticker going to show on the Blockstream info page or somewhere else?
I think it should show on the Explorer. Is it not showing for you?
No, I'm not getting anything.
Is
It also failed, the registration also failed.
Yeah, so sometimes the registration, it gives a failure message, but it actually still registers the asset. I think that's something we investigated maybe. But you should see the asset name, and if you don't, you could try and refresh, and maybe the registry is either down or it's taking longer than it should. Okay, you see the asset name?
Ticker as well, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so this,
And people will be able to take this off and store it on their J.
yeah, if it could, any liquid wallet that can store assets, which a lot of these our Blockstream products do, right? On Green as well, you could go and store your assets there. So.
And sorry, is there any KYC involved in any of this?
Not quite KYC, at least for pegging in. I know it's very easy to. Here for pegging out, I've
never pegged out myself, but I think there might be some of that involved because.
To peg out, you need what's known as a pack entry, and you need to be a member of the federation. But you can just swap out through one of the federation members. The most common one is one called side swap. There's been other ones, depending on the jurisdiction. Some are more, free going. Others are a bit more reserved, but you can typically get out pretty easily.
Another
Yeah.
way is atomic swap with someone not in the federation.
Yeah, if that's supported, I know cross-chain atomic swaps on Lightning have been an idea for a while. Not even with just Liquid, but other coins like Ethereum making a smart contract with HTLCs. But yeah, so we got the response back, and it looks like everything was registered okay. So now if I go back to this page, if I refresh, you should see the asset name and then the asset ticker and the precision and all that. So it's pretty easy to issue an asset once you have the code for it, although it was kind of annoying doing that whole contract hashing part. So that's why we were working on this other kind of website here, which is the Blockstream Asset Issuer. Like I said, it's still under development, but I did want to give a sneak preview to it right now. I'm on the wrong account. Let's see, I think I have a test account here. What is it? Or it might be, and let's try. I'm out of email verification. On this account, I don't really have the credentials for it. This is a demo account. I use a demo user, so I don't have to cross work stuff with the demo. But so maybe I'll delay showing off this tool. But it is here. I do have a couple more slides on it though. So at the very least, you could know what to expect. So the Blockstream Asset Issuer, it does have some features associated with it. So the Asset Issuer offers the following features. It has an easy-to-use GUI for issuing and registering assets. It has a direct process for uploading asset icons that are supported by Blockstream Green. And it has a tight integration with Blockstream Green that will allow easy distribution and reissuance of assets straight through the platform. The future ideas for the integration between the Asset Issuer tool and Green are to be able to push transactions from the web onto your Green wallet and be able to approve them and reject. So those are the later things. So this live demo, again, I can't, I don't have I'm not logged into my Blockstream email for this account, and I don't want to kind of switch the accounts for demos, but I do want you to stay in touch. We will be releasing this tool soon, and if you want to be included in our mailing list for Asset Issuer tool, you could scan this QR code and add your email so that you'll get messages about the updates. Yeah. And yeah, that's all for the talk. Thanks.